Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. This is the Profile Show, the first episode of the Profile Show that is starting on Gunjur Online TV today, Friday, the 18th of April, 2025. Our guest today is an ecologist, an environmental activist who hail from the coastal settlement of Gunjur in the Gambia, currently lives in the United States of America. I wouldn't do much talking except invite Mr. Omar Saho from Gunjur, now resident in the United States, as a first guest of the Profile Show with LBJ. Omar, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jame, for having me at this great platform. It's my pleasure and honor to be the first guest for the Profile Show. We hope to have that exciting, interesting, and engaging discussion with our audience, where I'll be giving them a memoir of my background from Gunjur to pretty much Taiwan and the US. How was the journey like? And who is Omar today? Pretty much that's going to sum up, people who haven't seen my engagement in social media or in person. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Omar, for that short introduction, and welcome to the Profile Show with LBJ. Like I said, we are going to obviously use both English and Mandinka for this program for the benefit of the wider community. But first of all, can you introduce yourself? Who is Omar Saho?
Well, Omar Saho is a Gambian, born and brought up in Gunjur village, the Gambia. Was born in the 80s, in the late 80s. Pretty much did my early education at Gunjur Primary School. Then I proceeded like Gunjur Primary School. Then I went to Gambia Senior Secondary School. Did a bit of a tourism studies in the Gambia. But I've done my entire childhood in Gunjur, pretty much like any other village child, whereby you do your Monday to Friday of going to the school. Then over the weekend, you're actually either helping your moms at the vegetable garden or engaging like firewood collection, or during the leisure time going for like hunting with dogs. So I have done pretty much all of those things in the village.
What was growing up in Gunjur like?
Quite interesting, because the community was so diverse. There wasn't that much influence of technology back then, which means everybody knew your next door neighbor. You knew the people you grew up with. You can be able to at least go to the next house, at the neighborhood, eat from their bowl, pretty much. You can be able to go to the next compound next to you, borrow their axe or their cutlass or their rake if you are doing any farming, activity in the village. You are able to attend people's naming ceremony. You are able to at least go down to, during initiation ceremonies, it's like the circumcision ceremonies, participate in some of those events. People were very much accommodating back then. There was huge tolerance, there was respect, and there was a sense of community back then. So that was something that, I still remember fully, and it was giving me a very good memory of who I am as an African.
That's great. Obviously you started primary school in Gunjur, and then from there, what was your educational journey like growing up in Gunjur?
Well, it was a bit of a mixed experience of both hardship and some, enjoyable moments. In the simple sense that growing up, I was what we term as a first generation scholar. Like my mom have never been to school, my dad has never been to school. I happened to be the second child in the family that was pretty much sent to conventional education. My sister was sent to the Khalid bin Walid, that's the Islamic school in Gunjur. And then I was the only one who had to pave a way for my younger siblings to see if I must succeed, you also have a chance to succeed in your life. Then it was very rough because I didn't have anybody within the household settings who can at least walk me through my lessons, or if I'm doing any revisions or studies at home, who can guide me through. So everything pretty much that I knew from the classroom base was what actually have to click onto to make sure it doesn't get lost along the way. If I am at home, I have to make sure by all means to study a lot. My mom and dad were like, "Oh my God, right, to go and study," but they actually have no clue what I'm actually doing, whether I'm studying or not. So it was pretty much very tough. And there have been certain times whereby my mom and dad will struggle even to pay for my school fees. The pair of uniform I have is what I'm going to keep on for at least the next several years down the line before, in fact, I can have another pair of uniform. I have to walk barefoot from home to go to school. Sometimes I didn't have a body lotion to apply on my body, but I used the local cooking oil, so at least I could look shiny. So those are all kind of experiences that you have to sail through the system.
Yeah, that's vital. I mean, this show is about inspiring the next generation. Obviously, I'm a firm believer of if you don't have role models, then sometimes it's very difficult to find the way in life. You mentioned that you didn't have your first generation of people that have gone to school in your family. You didn't have brothers and sisters before you would gone to school. You're the first one. So that's why it's very important to have role models. You then obviously went through all of that. You didn't have a parents that went to school, conventional school. It started with you, but you still made your way through primary education. Where did you go to secondary or high school?
I went to Gunjur Upper Basic School, and then luckily we were the last batch to sat down for the common entrance exam. Education back then was very competitive because nobody wanna fail your school. During my early days at Gunjur Lower Basic School, you either pass and get promoted to the next class, or you fail and stay until you're able to pass. If you cannot pass, you gotta get stuck down there. So from Gunjur Lower Basic School, primary school, we had the last batch. We started the common entrance exam. I was in the same batch with people like Farax, Abubakar Jame, people like Suleiman Juf, and other people were in the same batch, with some of the other folks back then. So I went down to Gunjur Upper Basic School. Instead of doing 3 years down there, I did actually spend 5 years at Gunjur Upper Basic School because my dad wanted me to go to a technical school. That was St. Peter's, so that I can learn about skill because he's a blacksmith. And he believed in training me to have that hands-on experience whereby I can be having the knowledge, but also be able to at least use my hands to work. So he wanted to be a technical guy. Then I went down to St. Peter's School. My grades were not so good. Then he spoke to the principal then and asked him how was Omar's grade. He was like, well, he could actually, I think it was aggregate 32 then. He was like, no, what is your advice? And the guy was like, well, he's so playful. I know he got the stuff. He's so smart, but we got to actually make him stay here for the extra 2 years. So instead of me repeating grade 9, they had me revise back to grade 8. So I have to now start from grade 8 again, get myself prepared, and come and then do the grade 9 again. And then when I do the reciting, at least, alhamdulillah, I was able to get a good grade to go to Gambia High School instead of St. Peter's then. But then, interestingly enough, that the same grade 9 I was doing the repeating, my dad passed away. So then there was no advice.
Wow.
So that was pretty much about it. So, I spent 5 years down there, made very good classmates, schoolmates. The school teachers were very much supportive to make sure I succeed because my dad was then working as a cleaner at Gunjur Upper Basic School. So he pretty much knew most of the faculty members at the school back then. So they were in fact also training me and then trying to model me and then, pretty much, polish me, teach me as their own son because they're actually down there with my dad.
Right. That's quite interesting. Yes, I do. Growing up, I do remember, obviously, your dad working at the school. But
along those lines, very interestingly, because I have to show gratitude to people like Mr. Jada, we call it Jada Ba, were very supportive. People like Usman Manko Toure. I used to work from Gunjur Kulukochi all the way down to Manko's place around Arabic school to go for after school lessons. So I'll go down after Maghrib Salah to go. Manko will give me, and then one boy called Modu Samate, and then some few other ladies. There was one lady around Masule Samus area called, I think it's a Jada or so. We will go down there in the evening to have after classes session on mathematics and science. He was doing that on pro bono, free of charge for us. And all of this has helped me a lot because I was very good with social science fields, but I do struggle a lot with math and science. But with that extra class along the way, that has helped me a lot.
Right. That's quite interesting. And then obviously you transitioned to, from school education, and then you started working with assets.
Yes.
Tell us about that journey.
Well, I do finish my high school way back in 2008, and then have somebody who does not have that much support network along the way. I was like, what kind of job can I have whereby I can be able to earn an income and support my family? because my mom was a vegetable gardener. And the only thing that I can change that kind of dynamics at the household level is for me to pick up a job. And then I look at various industries along the way. I was in Bakau when I was going to my high school, and I realized that tourism was one of the major employer back then. The people I used to stay within the same compound, mostly from Gunjur and Karton and other part of the combos, were working as bartenders or working in hospital receptionists, somebody working as tour guide. Then I become developing that strong passion for tourism as early as 2005. By the time I finished my high school WIC exams, I went down the Gambia Hotel School. I picked up the application form. I was, pretty much gonna get enrolled at Gambia Hotel School. But then the new school was also established that pretty much looked at the administration of tourism in the country. That was the Institute of Travel and Tourism of the Gambia. I was able to get admission to that particular school. So that was how I went into tourism. So I studied 2 years of tourism administration management and everything have the travel industry. Then I was lucky to be trained as a marketing officer for Asset. So for those who have no idea about Asset, it used to be a small company that promote all the small scale enterprises in tourism, from anywhere from the Kartons, the Gunjurs, all the way to around Janjambure.
Yeah.
So my office pretty much run promoting all the small scale ecotourism camps. Along those lines, I also guide students from Norway, from the UK, to other part of the country. This is how I knew most of the tourist attractions in the Gambia, anywhere from the western part of the Gambia to Lamenkoto, to Janjambure area. I can be able to delve into some tourist attractions as well as the historical and heritage side of the country, because it all started from Ashet. Because I was pretty much not only marketing the Ecologist, the tourist attractions, and then the juice pressers or those who are doing tie-and-dye in the country, but I was also actually involved in the actual administration of how to promote this individual, these businesses.
That's quite interesting.
That particular work,
yeah,
and that has given me a wider experience. Also, be able to earn something. I start as a trainee with $500 as my paycheck.
Right.
$500. I will work every day to go to work back and forth every day. If I get my paycheck at the end of the month, I cash it. I will work from Bakau to Tibagaras. Then that's the only way I'm going to pay a fare. Go to and give the $500 to my mom to say, you know what, buy a bag of rice. This nigga get a bag of rice, but this is money, and then you spend on the family. I will get oranges and mangoes and then put them in the bag again, only pay for a fare from Gunjur to Bakau Tibagar. And I work from Tibagar only to Bakau Kachikali. High school do the same thing. I live for lift, I live for ride for 3 good years from Bakau to Banjo. And
that must be quite hard. That must be quite hard. Obviously, at that young age, your first job, obviously having to support the family instead of developing yourself. But then that's all good. You're working for Assets, and then we then realized Omar is actually heavily involved in environmental activism, conservation and climate change activities. How did you get into all of that, despite having this job that doesn't pay well? $500 is back in those days. You're having to use that as transport to go to work and then supporting your family. How did you get into the environmental aspect of things, conservation? Basically, some of these things are not paying, literally, they're just done on voluntary basis. How did you get into that?
So this is what happened. I have higher national diploma in tourism from the Gambia. I was able to apply for a school in Taiwan where I got my bachelor's degree in tourism. But I always believe that based on my spiritual conviction, I should not actually get into the food and beverage aspect of the hotel industry. I don't want to deal with alcohol and all of that stuff. Respect to all, anyone who is doing that kind of job. Then when I finished my bachelor's degree in Taiwan, I did apply to various universities in Taiwan. I get up with a very nice GPA. We were only 3 foreign students who were actually in the particular program. It was myself and one Raymond Mene from the Gambia and Christina from Denmark. So the whole university of 3 college programs on tourism, that's hotel management, tourism administration and event management, and as well as culinary service, it was only 3 international students. So when I finished the program, before I graduate, I start applying for a graduate degree programs. I got admission for MBA, I got admission for hotel management, and I also got admission for environmental science. And all of these are coming from various national universities in Taiwan. Those who are familiar with Taiwan, I met at the National Chai University. No, 4. National Chai University, National Yuanzi University, National Southern Taiwan University, and also National Donghua University. So all of them, if I look at them, I did like some management courses during my tourism study in the Gambia. The same thing was in Taiwan too. I was like, well, I think I have to go in environmental science because Africa, we are very unique in terms of wildlife. We are very unique in terms of culture. So if I happen to get like an environmental degree, that will complement my tourism degree. If things doesn't work for me in the environment, I have to have that resilience to be able, at least, in tourism, I have to get that resilience and be able to be very unique to work in the environmental field. So
yeah, but Mr. Sao, Omar, you did your first degree was in business administration.
Yeah, pretty much, but I specialize in tourism.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on.
It's a Bachelor of Business Administration in Program of Tourism and Events Management.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So when I finish that bachelor's degree in tourism and events management, now it's either I go home to Gambia and work with a bachelor's degree, or I proceed and do a master's degree program. I did send out a couple of applications, and all of them turns out positive. I got admitted. All of them on full scholarship. So my education from high school, my mom actually stopped paying for my school from grade 10. That was since when I started having scholarship. From grade 11, 12, I have scholarship from BCC, Banjul City Council. I went to Taiwan. I have a scholarship for 4 good years. It was very rough at the start. Then I have another 2-year scholarship for my master's degree program. But then in the master's degree program was when I specialized and studied conservation. That's pretty much environmental governance. The reason why I do that, I was like, okay, yes, I'm from Gunjur. It's in the coastline. We can promote ecotourism in Gunjur. But if that doesn't also work, we have a thriving fishing community where I can be able to involve in some of the policy, discussions, and be able to see how can we promote conservation and long-term sustainability of the particular industry. So that was pretty much the decision for me going to the science field.
Right. Okay. And then you did the master's. You got. I mean, we'll come to that. You got 2 masters. So, can you talk us through your first master's, basically, having done your first degree in Taiwan and not deciding to go back to Gambia to work, but then pursue a master's degree in Taiwan? Can you tell us about that first degree?
So the first degree, I was pretty much trained as a pure, I was an ecologist or natural scientist, because pretty much my work was on environmental governance. So we use Australian socio-ecological systems. We look at how a system been governed in a particular society, how our benefit sharing has been done, what are some of the various political players here, and how a certain kind of policy has been enacted, introduced towards that long-term sustainability of a common pool resource. So I can look at, for example, the fishing industry in the Gambia and analyze where do we have a problem. What is the root cause of that particular problem? How do you provide some policy recommendations? This is where I have my expertise on. But along the same line, I am also trained to do field ecological surveys of, for example, sea turtles. I can look at a particular big tree and tell you this how old this particular tree is, because there's a thing that we call DBH, diameter at breast height. You can do all those measurements. If there's supposed to be a road construction project being done, you can either do the biological survey of the impact it's going to cause on the biodiversity, or also on the socio-ecological aspect of the people living around that area. So I have bought that mix of a policy and natural science background when I was, doing my master's degree study in Taiwan, and then the issue of me specializing PD on that 2 dynamics is more of as Gambians or Africans pretty much, we have both the natural science issues that we have in our countries, but we also have the policy shortages or policy loopholes that need to be addressed. So that was why I have that synchronization of both concepts and as well as trainings while I was doing my graduate degree studies in Taiwan. So I did the program in 2 years. Yeah. I did actual fieldwork 1 year in the university campus, and I was sent to Gambia for fieldwork. I was in the country for another 3-4 months, flew back to Taiwan, wrote my master's thesis. I was able to defend it and I get it passed at one go, and then I was able to graduate in 2017.
Okay, impressive. So Omar, viewers, you're with Omar Saho on the Profile Show. But coming through the benefit of a wider audience, the program coming out for you and part of it in Bakela Mandika account. Yo, Alna Badi Manong Lamin Jame, coming for the Profile Show with Omar, so the Profile Show with LBJ, B, Naluntang Minsoto Jang Wolom, Omar Sawati, Mi Alonko, Awuluta Gunjurle, ayala dindi abe ke Gunjur ayala crown ke Gunjur for sign abe America banko kang through that atara Taiwan ala studies keji yo ning program unata pro ka jibe dindingol min be koto mol mi alon ko itata through Johnny la mi alon ko silota mi alon ko kabiri dindingo for sign ala ke molti mi alon ko itamata e bir kulol la e pour isinana ni se kachano ninni kasata ye mineke e dunta mun kolea kuolle kono e dunta mun sonea kuolle kono pour ka jeko e fango isi fango bondino ku kono because ni ajan tolla fannal jama babi je fuaria ka wulu wole kono bare isi mineke no pour isi si fango bondi o fuaria kono warante ye la balu o soni andino ani la dimbaya e wala e la family ibota dame isi ol fana la balu o soni andino nyaadile yo ning Omar bola kachaka Omar saying angale kan folen na first 10 minutes 20 minutes saying lafsale pu kanyin program min ke sa fo nonye manika kangola ita mu jamalti jamalom Umar Saoti e wuluta mun tole ye karamo ken mun tole fo bi ibe America iso fo nyen na bari man linka la moy lali jannim be continue la kotenke angale kangola kaboyla fak second masters la kata fo bi ibe dame America.
Yo, lama na baraka bake akanya kontane ko ni sewo di katarang program to bi puro na balu wanying na silo nyen kada nyaade la nga simfa ja jamaleta nuka ke ntem minti bi wo ka commencé inte wolda ko Gunjur satele kono western region tundo nyinto ngana dindi ya bege ko Gunjur jelato na dindi ya nying ni ajibe wala made kata karam moto la made Gunjur primary school don to nga karam ko wolto mbota wodla ni bada karam moto bin tenengoni arjimo tema ngata mbama ko naki bon la ndimanta naki bon lu ngum yalen ko ngata ma lo nyina wulo kono ndimanta nyin ku flo la nakar mo nyin ko la ngata wula kono demona ha ngolati wula kono demo ni wula demo wala ngata wala nyin ngata sangol nin ko nek na so ko ngam min fanga de nyaka so sanji wodo ngol ke Gunjur primary school yento nada ke mo labonti min command interest exam mo nyiba Gunjur je so kabiri ngo wampara wanta da Gunjur secondary school to mimbe silo kanje dr yasi yabala ntala secondary school ta masni sabaka jade sanji lulu wala kaje kadum tebe karan kanne ntaka na family nyi ko mo folodi min tatte baba karan wala so woti ba karan nyimba man karan mfa man karan nte makoro suyo kono min ka Umar nyinke nyike kay jamare bare kam min fon wa bare kam min fon karan ka story suyo kono mba mo wala mfa mo wala ka ala fana mi to na harje wala
wo point of correct bakele mbatu nge mutajira wo kumata baba kele katum bari kam nyim programo nata sama minna puru mol mi alon ko nga ndikite la ko idunta kuol minna fo bi so be damen wol mini ke tumando ba to fo ye mol sotol mi alon ko ibe silol tandile la comme nin tubaab karam ko sa duma dol bi je wol tala arab karam la silol walante dol bi je wol man karam mu meke bar sa ni je mu foloti mi alon ko alla family nyin ko no wala alla suo kono ite dolna tala karam mu ab koleatale abe koleala de pour do bi je moye mo soto min ba fole karam de la buko study mi alon ka te man tambi wo watola wo ke tan ite ila experience mu minati wo fannala
a koleata bakle karam linketa mbe karan kande barin kum fi mala ma dimbe kalen kamen fan karan nin tara karan moten karle minna ngole motanga akaran bare kukul na kanye karan bunda tin karan nyin kono kan be primary school mte man ko do sor miana ko ni mo kelta mo kan kanju amo soro ndun dogo je lipare kum kala fara karan o time barako bi so bayabe je ngari ne man na grade 5 ni grade 6 ma fa wala grade 3 fan ka penso ma fa wala ni fengo wa ni mo no sa ko mars mental drill e ki li bola ken ndema so busola sunde ka no so science so be ingala mental drill ngo once a lot bearing 2 times 2 up to like 2 times 24 kam danga be ko la time smala busola
ka kram
kam da ka be kram for grade 6 ala mo na desmo bo la subhanahu wa ta'ala barako ke mo le ko to ane mini fana bandana subhanahu wa ta'ala so janatu fi daws wala so abole kono nada karam tan so bal na grade 6 ma fona ntara wala nyama ngo bantara junior school nada feya kuma so so karam ko sembo so mande bar wo primary school la bango mfama la mande Gunjur sa kunda ko ranyin kono sawta na ko rakata mat ko coach kabrin sonde kul coach wala wo fanan ka tal birin kul coach kana kata junior school back and forth wo time man nak fu ñoo jama soro kul coach mo fa wala fo boto bojang wala kada basri fo sirfo harela dingo de boto bojang so nim bol ko ñoo la school ha but studying ko become fongale grade 9 student fe ko min mo ngamin karang class ko wala ma binan exam so I was ill prepared mon pare no exam fongala nga exam mo mom fota lefa kar mo min no sen pedesti karum fama ko ngata nga ta sen pedas nseke penta karan no jere wala building fabrication atala mine mo walti akonga karam kabir exam friend adama falle be nje wata mo has master in Gunjur Basic School aya nyininka aka Omar ngala ne ninga nyatu ne sobela abe kudo terale bar ninka da high school abdala jere bar akatani step minna amon fanis no master back mbara ya repeat ndu ninga ba repeat na ya marota mas grade 8 nata nga mas grade 8
ha bare woto opposition o kumata bake because yale la fada ikaman karang
ha
iba maman karang
ha
bari fama be karam
abe do ko la wo time Gunjur school oro atele fitarati je so alo fitar ko wo laji ande nyin karan na mo la ko be wonyo kono adam faale wo time o abe brikam ko la atele master wo time Mr. Jata la vice principal wo time o nji no English ya ko ke nji wo time o so just sane bare je wo wato
right
then Usman manko to wala Gunjur ko la LBJ Mr. Sanya wala benunji ni ci jamala wala sum famala ke terol so wala kono wala ndata ko han ko gada report fo mo samba ka mas ko la taw nyinen ka men nyimbala wala
so wo kumata bakale even though ya foko ifama man karam but karam la kuma ay wolon yaje wala atin hanni nin kayto min nata ate ya diatela aba munun la karam muta ta di mo la mi alon ka ba fasal lay so that asa long ko ila karam nin abe tembo min do fo anyante ma ko ila nyaadi la bara te man karam ate student la no te ma ko ila la ko mo ko nin ko ko tengala bara san saying aka bari yalo modol be ma wosoto
ha
yaje ha LBJ wolma wo facilities lo pour kata ka woni nin karo ke man karam ite ma ko ila no wo wala impact itila ila ali karawnding ak wo daman lim fo nyawto ba
so nara so biya kuma so tala kale ngala santa man plilla no ko fa men ko to nga wuliya fay abalon na so ko nyimba nga te nga so biya mo then kabiri nga o repeating ko kuma as grade 8 again I become having na ko so ka better back na score because what time things like SES ndeka 95 ke mo ko so wala la mo nte so fo ko fe class ko nam tan kam bol nga fa nga même fandi wonto history ngol be blanc ko ko time nka bondi Gunjur fana kul coach kala fa manko ya suma manko to ya Gunjur Arabic school comme class to de ke wularo fitir sal ko la ko sabo sal ko tan ko ndo ngana ngalla ngul suma ndam dakar mo ko re so ngo wanda de ngam de ngabe to good grade social wala mfama ntara grade 9 rek grade 8 ni 9 tema was good ay radio ngodi 9 sala ko ngara jota kala ma BBC news pour ngale concept ya so radio ni abiko battery ta because battery ko man tan bulo kono so la ko de ka wane rek pour di master de man de kala mo ala akonta wala barna mo grade 9 sango ñu ko tan bang so ko na bawola na high school mbembe sa jama high school jole ko so fama wata ma ko numya le ke wala da demo ke wulo kon danu na mo na fo mi fa kan kala mo ni fo jo wal ani ngala ma dol te da driving fana ko time ko min dun tan high school mi alen ko na so ba ni ko was kabirin fama fare mama sindi akuni o matale me do manya ke baade ni so bayata idol so baya ni fuda kan family bi sakasara adiyam ni fa ko mboda bun kon mfana ko mboda kan bana sonda mbata ko kala karumo ntara no so baya Gunjur wala ntara bakaw ni ngala hajo mo me jaman football mano ko san football mi mbam fama tan football ko la ni social activity tra be ko karangala mari so kono sama do ko so kono ko band ni ntara han bala han ko ku ba ko ntemano akan dibala kan jufrala ni ntara football téléphone Gunjur da ko nda filno wala kan jufrala tan so ngam fanya be mo mel nar ko ta disco ta ni fural don mo metin ding birin ba Gunjur rek ngom nga be bula kabrin bama diamo ko nyawala nata high school wo nyama ngaso bi am da high school fumbala high school ngaba
yo nyen kam tandi kan yi la jinto ba to ngem taje lo wolo nyenti do bije ikamodo je abe lado a position do ante place do to b ay kujamale taki warante ay kujamale sacrifice ay kujamale tuje mi alon ko funding kelu do bije akake na solti ma tuje katika ni cool min fote ni furalo do be kamin foko all play you know all work no play makes jack the dol ball angale tibawul kamin fo ya le wato do be dindia fo dindia ke bare dindia wato dole ko dole biji ni me bula tumando bato ila fatala da me ibi casino wotola so ila ning fengol mi alon ko ki fo furalol ning night club tal yewol bula pour yaje ko ite dammalo moti mi alon ko ila alla dimbaro ite le nyanta kala moti mi alon ko so be ala fo ise kutote no ise fon bonde ku kono ila dimba ila family fana bonde ku kono wo kuma da bakele yo bere bara gunju sai tata bakaw yeah bine ke woto sai
Chombe bakao salis baka bakao no actually sanju wala ka bakao sanju sama follow ni kemedi nga high school le wanunje high school fana ka pala ka do tli intaka lefe dani baka all kepen slow kan kata banjun sanju saba dal high school nga be to ke live down all so ala bika kuja wake ni dala trust bank sa la marketing director ni salima kalon tol ni salima kalon tol ka lo baka kepen slow kan live ni tli wotli but bi fana alhamdulillah fana place bal so ngone ko wala do bi edward singale kan so live la you know ani mo jamale be ko mo kuma jama so live la so bandini wala abanda so nteni uniform clean la uniform pair la da gunjur kata high school kabima fana sani sama nyaw kono uniform balala na gunjurun ko you know fawa farax wala fana uniform ba kata high school bani baba jabang kala uniform kutum da kayna tunte fana ko dum nga uniform o do post on facebook comment on mo ka oversize wo mo fa ke bala uniform wala
okay
so nga ko wala nyama wo time on nje bakaw kontom ba kilo ndek wala so bakaw ndika daf mo so simon so nin duto jonda sama ko ngam ngam ngadam nin tili kan ko le mo men loro je mi ko mbari be luwaso la woto le ko le nga ci sala so nga sunya ngadam mata ngalla sakete wala nya fa nga bakaw ngo high school o banje janik na high school ban ko man sabine wano londo la karola kan la fala karola puruka do ko so tariya ke kamba ma ko su ko nga felen felen le ko nada ko bakonte bodo la tourism tibab kunda bisole bola fo metara hotel hasari receptionist fo metara je bun ko fi do la bank fo metara la nyim patende ko la fo metara tourist kala ti bank mbere nga fen jibe ma fa
so sakatuma akamunun ko janni instead of yeta high school sorry tar high school instead of A level ke warante high education sa yo bule ko mbatu ngata do ko nyini prince mbama ma ko no
yes sumbe wala kan you know na first course ni nga hotel school apply because wala do ko sudo ka tele wa time nga jesoro den kanam ko tama fa de Gambia je ka faje Institute of Travel and Tourism of the Gambia ngo fana apply ngo fana soro so nata Institute of Travel and Tourism of the Gambia wo nga sanji follow waje mpare da from 2008 or 9 mpare da almost pretty much all A's den be do ko ni ngani maso ndaka tama sama brim bakaw nse hotel be nga fa bring oson be hotel kepen hotel sonmin hotel kanana fo e nanan demanding African village hotel galal lodge kama wala fasene Gambia chum ko don sam da ngebe fo kay ko mo kay do ndo na bago ko no time kata hotel nga do ko nga apply ni nga apply e ka fani be ko la be ko commande so ngo take ngata kimbe je na principal mi nen ko wo time abe no Institute of Translation of the Gambia sector yan nyang akon ngore be do ko ni nel nek bala ka trainer so sector yan nyang ni dawda nyam bolé Presta as a marketing trainee force. Ntara wala 3 months on nga wa nga kumfa. So 3 months on inta be Timbuktu second floor Fajara. Sabina hotel, Sabina Balaje, Sabina Fajara.
Yeah.
Sombe wala nka taman sima tili wotile because you can have a camera le benjola wala. So nko ni camera le kuma nyana mala nyunda, nyu ka fan mala nyunda. Sombe taman sima la every day somonda juno as early as 8:30. Ko ndela Timbuktu bunda dol. Ko sala wala somonda. What time la ngani journalist wala seni marna wala ngelo what time wala mati alu morno wala betu hunti what time ngol belo what time wala baksin tele office beto central tele dum office aponje so do je ninka jenenti binole ka ji woni sa password joni be ngati das ngati bo so man ni password ngam password jo wala ni mo password ngata man sinwol so ngako wala nyama then ngati babo dol guide from Norway they were about 18 students they were like hey Omar you're so good why are you still working down and I don't have any financial support to go back to school even though I'm small but I have to get the family back home you can how much was it in about $16,000 and that was actually the tuition fee you can pay for it eventually I was guiding that trip from Safari Garden Hotel in Fajara to go down to Janjambure no Tumane Tenda
right
so mes makan Tumane Tenda la mati yo funye na murunto ni boso kon discovery to so boso kon nte mala be ni drive on to da mo fumati so bringing some more trip when it was nice. Now they pay for more $16,000 through David in the Gunjur footstep ecology as Sungru and Linda. So you won't have journey. Not an advanced diploma in tourism study. More than Nabang, not a Taiwan sample a bachelor's degree in tourism study.
Okay. So, but Janni kata Taiwan, yela advanced yela diploma ke in Gambia.
In tourism, yes.
In tourism, yalo. But ngalong ko ni ko Omar Omar Saho niamo you talk about a lot. Idea muta environment na dandango. Na conservation niko Omar Saho warning environmental protection conservation ipika Omar tuno koma auto sa ite dunda no wol kono nyaari bari with ni challenges nyol baby je kabo so primary school feta fo bakaw fena ta nyendo ko so bari ngalon ko environmental conservation it of faraman sata je bakele wol nata full kono nyaari le
so min kada nga kafo dungo do lolo dinga no Taiwan fa nga fa eco travel Gambia that was way back in 20 obviously registered in 2013 but way back in 2010 ma fa la kamata no Taiwan ba follow nga tourism travel men ke ngane ko you know what fon to le tibaba tan nga community based tourism promote in the Gambia na satel kono ni ala as mako no kolo karwal dinding so ngo so the manding and then ne community based tourism promote wala ka wulo promote back and then nya so women kun kono waro nata Taiwan na mama sia environment na time
okay
nata Taiwan nga conventional tourism coastal study you know statistics economics financial accounting tourism business administration and everything I be like around tourism for the first 4 years but then I also took some environmental courses along my bachelor's degree program
okay
so it was very interesting energy and environment and conservation so ngo tana Taiwan sanjina no kono je Kaberinga Wobang in 2015, Sanyinga master's degree apply. Smaller kind of Gambia time, Gambia University BJ, Mojale bachelor's.
So degree la first degree ke Taiwan, imam murung Gambia to Taiwan.
In container.
Okay.
So Kabering container, not a master's degree apply. Karamuna lingo la safi benadanta, but Kabiri fana benta, a Kohan Buzumanta Jola. So libe scholarship board na wala so ngaji be ñinne ko business administration ñinne ko hotel management ñinne fana ko hotel management ñinne ko environment ko mola environment kadu man ko ni ñaje man se ko mbok mas dina ni tara Gambia ni tourism background wani ni man de ko so wala ni environment mbulo ko no a listen se ko to teno wala so kabin tara nga environment story mboda Taiwan sinju sate ni ko sa sinju ndara national dongwa in China in Hualien it's about pretty much 4 hours difference near GB. So kamenta hwale nga sanji folo keje nga environment kara world so be dunda am da Gambia la ni environment ko ngota kan da keje bakade bring kal no tamina problem mode so during this Facebook nga post about environment ngata koma barna environment kara Taiwan wala ntona environment management nya mba mara nyani luwala karol nte ngala karam karam mo da makale Gambia no mi karam mo international program wala in English inte da mala ngo karam ni keje ma fawala karwani fanna en karni fulalla wala ma londe lu karwani mba tamala nya ni simba wulo kono bibi la ko nyimu dafen jamala ni dafo ni balu ba nyaade le iba mara nya le ka tankande wulo ferja ni mesilo lola jamma fal dembe ni wulo mba am tala nga tay wo wulo ni abi hadama don torala nyaade le ni jiro min be jiri ba ni bantan jure ma jara jure ma asanji jelleke so yin kandi wala wulo kono wodla nka bonde Taiwan ho walende le nya wala kasma filwo kola wodlaje a fula nyaw ni wala tibabu do be ka fa en Australians ate ajibe ko hadama do la balo social ecological dynamics of human beings wol mol ni la dafon ni wulol mi be bala wala ni la balu nya ni den la karola is balu no nya kan nyo batande ni wo balu be kere wala fa ni mo na fam solo wulo fa tan kan nya la comme community based forest project ko dentina ma de ba o yi wana promote tourism based ecotourism project so la ma wo mo na fa ni batala lo nya de ni atana marale kan fa wala jamala kala maralote wala marlo fana ba keno imam mo jamal ne ka fu jamal so ka foli be fa no nya ke son de nyoka na ka fo na karona ke nyim fanna fulolde bula kono londo tamala nyaadire bula marlo fana be ka nyaade ni luwani no marlo la karola police la karola so ngo 41 kabiri nga fosi so nyimbang nyen be kan masastisis nyiwa den gambe man sekunda te do santole mo woro wala ndana la do mo woro lo nyin kono kan sama na gambe ko na filo ko nyiwa barno filo ko wani ko ndebe ko ma fa na gunjur ma fa wala nin kan ka ke simle karam wala environment mbare ngata ne karam ni ngasundi gunjur pada borndo wala
okay
nada ka kutol
so conservation work
exactly so nga Gambia la coastline no study how do we run or manage or conserve the coast of the Gambia from Bunyalo to Kartong looking at fisheries, looking at the coastal sand management down there, looking at all this environment exploitation. So ngom da nga study back but not specialized kutol likamba bake so nga kutol nangi kara wala nga fisheries school understand wala ha Munda Taiwan, kabirna onna Gambia nga kuol je bada borno mi ka manyafa. Wala like a challenge so la kuol je ma fa wala kinge bio be Africa la bada borno la je ma fa wala. Borna hotola fana bo bada borno la. Nin na nyi ka jon ne ke tunda le beti re wala abe torsim Africa la. Ning ba fana mamara kala wala sim falen bida kam jebi and naka nyafa de carton nyeda salafa ba fana nda satinya mumina balo sunni wala asnaka e mantora kode kabrimunda Taiwan no ngana filo ko kam para ngala talo ning ko ta kamna Taiwan nata ko ning defo le dilo wanyama nin nyanga ko jimi manka mambete ya fan sata ngadiam sunna diamo ne mo na commence be in 2016 kana fasani
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
welcome. So, viewers, this is the Profile Show with LBJ. Our guest today is Omar AJ Saho, who is an ecologist and an environmental activist currently based in the United States. So, this program is about trying to inspire the younger generation to appreciate when you see somebody at a certain level. You've got to appreciate what they've gone through to actually get to where they are. Oftentimes, like I said, most of us we're not born with silver spoons in our mouths. You have to work really, really hard under extreme, situations to really get to where you are, or even to move from one level to another. So, the profile show with Lamin Jame, LB Jame, wolo mu program otimi alon ko mbake kangale bi Gunjur online TV. Na lunta mi nga soto bi wolon Omar AJ Saho Gunjur ngolo ma luta Gunjur karanta Gunjur for janninga be bola Gunjur kata Taiwan for bi abe siring America Bangkok. Omar Saho. So moving on. Having done your first degree and also your first master's degree, you went on to do another master's degree. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, what is what happened? In 2017, I packed all my baggage. I'm saying, you know what? I'm going back to Gambia to contribute towards the development of the country. So I returned finally in 2017 to Gambia. But before going to Gambia, I actually secured my US visa in Taiwan. So I went to Gambia, did apply for jobs in the Gambia with National Environment Agency. Then the director was Suare. I applied for a job with Ministry of Environment. Then Lamin Diba was the minister back then. I applied to University of the Gambia. And all of these places I'll go for, except for Ministry of Environment, they will call me for interview. But they'll never bring me on board. Interestingly enough, I had all speculations that my advocacy and activism experience is why the government of Barrow does not want to get me hired. People like me are blacklisted. That were like all hearsay. But I was never hired for God's sake for whatever reason. I was called a couple of times to go down to MDI UTG campus in Caniving for interview. So I went down there, met with the management to lecture at the School of Agriculture and Environmental Science at UTG, but they never get me on board. I went a couple of times. I went down to NEA, and they will tell me back then, Denton was, I don't know whether the admin director was traveling to Swiss, was attending a lot of conference. They never moved ahead with my application. I went to PMO. I picked up the form 16B. That was anybody who got like a higher, degree upwards to fill. I never get contacted. So I was in the Gambia for about 4 or 5 months. Things started moving for me. I applied to FAO as the natural resource officer. I never went through the system. I was like, well, I think I gotta left this country. Then there was a conference of sustainable development at Columbia University in New York. I'm like, well, I gotta leave this country. So I left that particular September on the 17th of September 2017 to Columbia University in New York. So that was how I was like, I gotta dust and empty my hands because things are not actually moving for me in the country.
So why do you think that is? Because when you went to Taiwan, you had your first degree and then you have a master's degree. Very, very interesting because climate change, environmental degradation is a big thing in the Gambia. So somebody who is very well educated in that area should solely be able to get employment in the Gambia. Why do you think you've not been employed?
From my own humanly judgment, there was some sort of insecurity that I was able to discover along the way because the dean of School of Agriculture and Environmental Science Studies at UTG was one Mr. Keita. He actually got a master's degree. Omar got a master's degree too. imagine somebody working under you that you had the same qualification with. If there's any, job promotion, you feel kind of like, somewhat insecure.
Mm-hmm.
But then I used to frequent NEA back then, and then during my conversation with Mohammed Jama Suare back then, he let me know, well, we have been hearing about your name for quite a while now. I never knew it is you. But then he have never revealed anything to me interestingly to say, what is why we're not gonna go ahead with the hiring. But all what I've had is like, oh, I'm waiting for, Dentin. I don't know whosoever that Dentin is. He's out of the country. When he comes back, we'll look into your application again. I knew people down there too who were at the Coastal and Marine Environment Unit. They didn't have their bachelor's degrees back then. They were in fact going to UTG. So I imagine somebody who's like a unit head or a program officer down there doesn't actually have a degree. They didn't have somebody who got a master's degree coming to the same unit. Because
so
my
essentially
focus was,
they felt threatened by
exactly. So my focus was I want to work for NEA, but not other specific unit. But I want to work for the Coastal and Marine Environment Unit because that's where I have my expertise on. I've been very honest with people. If I don't understand something, I don't want to understand it. I don't want to get involved in it. But if you want to get me hired, you have to hire me based on my content and what I understand. So it doesn't work. PDM was just either insecurity or there might be some political influence somewhere in the country.
Could it be your environmental activism?
Exactly, because I have had that several times that people like me, the Barra government, were not happy because when they took over the country, their main finances and their main financial funding were coming from China, and then people like me talking about them, it's like you're treating their source of income back then, and that was a huge correlation to what I was hearing back then in the community, what has happened 1 or 2 before I left Taiwan. The Gambia and Taiwan have severed their diplomatic tie, and then Gambia and Taiwan Gambia and China re-established their bilateral relationship.
Okay.
There was never any contact between the Gambian students resident in Taiwan to the Gambian embassy in China.
Right.
But when people like me are so much vocal about border government before I come back to Gambia in 2017, there was one day that they want to get a record of all the students in Taiwan to know which school they are studying and what they are doing down there. I was like, no, these people are not just happy what we are saying. So pretty much I feel that was the two things down there. People feel threatened, they feel so much insecure of me having me work under them, and also the political issues in the country.
Yeah.
You got to be part of them. If we are critical of their, governance system down there, they don't have you on board. Yeah,
that's a bit of a shame because obviously somebody who's well educated in this area, the Gambia, especially our part of the country, is going through a lot of environmental challenges.
So the thing is, this is not hearsay. If you contact people like that, Mr. Keda, they will tell you, the UT. I've never been to Gambia College before. But I used to walk inside that complex to go and make a follow-up at UTG. I used to call people like Abdulgay Dabo, he's from Gunjur, to say, hey, how's my application going down there? I used to go to, Carnifing, to Jimpex Road, and then go to NEA and follow up on my application down there. They knew me very well. Yeah. So that was, I used to, Ahmed was in the Gambia, Ahmed Manja was in the Gambia at one point in time, and he took me to meet with the minister at Ministry of Environment around official area.
Yeah.
Then Diba was down there. We talked about all this. They were like, send me an email with your credentials.
Yeah.
Did all of those things, but yes.
That's it. But I'll link the profile with LBJ, program on Mialonko, Masare Gunjur Online TV, Purukana Mold Sambana Mialonko, Nise Kachano, Purisela Live, Ila Balu, Cabrita Luluta for it Kebaata, Minike. Purke fauna fano, purke la family na fano, purka banko na fano. Being a means to wolom na nying episode follow nyinti wolom Omar AJ Saho ti gunyurun kolo mi alon ko saying abesiring America. Yo Omar bebing katakan wolom kabra la karang kifa parita Taiwan anata mulung Gambia purka GBI karang minke abe londo tamandila no na banko kanyadi le bari ni na banko GB ate farming karang conservation environment and ecology wo mu kulati mi alon ko be Gambia batandi kan fanna jama sa control bata na tundo nyinto kombo sal ma fangala yo barbutun kaddo ko soto Gambia kono wonata ke kuti mi alon ko koleata fe kabra la first degree soto ala first master soto manata say nan Gunjur mbe o tembo nyine to bari programme nyin lafta mo be na faso to je wala atin namba ke kan ni angale kanla anim mallega kanla yo sai mbe continue dano wala Omar mbe angale kamata ko tenke kasandi sai brio frustrational base to Gambia bri nata murun nang do ko man soto ne dulal be bundal be konkon do ko man soto no inata sai ka mirror do soto ibe bola banko kan nyaade le kata bla do. So having said that, now you're talking about how you actually left the country to go to United States. If you can continue on that.
So that, you know, when I finished my master's degree in Taiwan in 2017, I was fully prepared that in this life, yes, I'm going to need networks, professional network to grow in my life, but nobody can suppress me to survive. Clearly, I was built with that resilience. So when I was in the country for 3-4 months, I noticed that I'm going to work overnight, but things were actually working for me back then. There were a lot of resistance any day that I'm not. I'm not going to leave this country. But before I left Taiwan to Gambia, I did actually secure a 5-year US visa. So which means even if I stay in Gambia for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if things doesn't work, I can actually get out. That's a plan B. Right. So when things are not actually moving, I left the country and I came to the US in 2017. And the rest was history. I came here in 2017, went to Columbia University, attended the International Conference on Sustainable Development. A family that I guide when I was a tour guide in the Gambia, working for ASET, I used to guide some groups from US who will come down to Gambia ports with the cruise ships. I used to guide them too. And one of the families saw my postings on Facebook and said, hey, you know what? I'm in Columbia University attending this conference on sustainable international development. The lady reached out to me and said, hey, you know, Omar, you got to come down to Portland as soon as you finish that. I am going out of the country, but you have to come down here before I leave the country. Even though then I was thinking of like, how do I actually navigate with the immigration, legal status in the US? How do I settle down in America? That was my biggest headache when I landed into this country. But within 2-3 weeks, I had an emailed communication to say, you know what, come down to Portland as soon as you are done with all the errands you are doing in New York. That was how I flew from New York after attending the conference in Columbia University to Portland in around Seattle area. So get down there, we discuss, you know, what is my plan. I'm like, you know, I was in the Gambia. I was very honest, you know, I left Taiwan, went to Gambia, I left the country. I'm here for a conference, but if I can happen to have the chance to stay, I'll stay there because A, B, C, D reasons. Lady was like, okay, I'm going to go out of the country. You stay in my house. I'm going to come back after 1 month and we can talk about that. So I stayed down. Even though I have the 5 years visa, I was granted to stay in the country for 6 good months. So before the 6 months elapsed, she was like, hey, I'm going to send you to school. You got a natural science background, but I wanted to go and study social policy because you have been involved in advocacy. So you have to understand about the social dynamics of what you are studying. So she sent me to go to Boston. I applied to go to Brandeis University. It's a small Jewish university. And I was able to get a role into Hella School of Social Policy and Management on a full scholarship. So I went to Hella School in Boston at Brandeis. Then I got my second master's on international sustainable development.
Okay.
So during that studies, I specialized on social policy. So in Taiwan, it was environmental governance. In Boston, it was more of like, you know, social policy. And then now my work in the US is all about social policy work.
Okay. So that brings us to what you're currently doing in America. You are an attendant counselor, too, if you like. Tell us about that.
So when I finished my program in 2019, I picked up a job with a human service company, and I was a supervisor down there. I did that job for 2 years. The pay was not good. They were paying me about $25 per hour. I was like, this is way too small. It's more than my education. Then I move on to another company. They pay me a little over $30 per hour. Then from there, I pick up another job with the state of Washington where I'm currently working. So pretty much I deal with people who have different kind of developmental disability. It might be mental health issue, or they are delayed with their cognitive skills, or any of those developmental diagnoses that they actually have. I work with the state of Washington, who provide them with the care plans. I will do the training for their staff, work on their housing, work on staff training, work on annual case assessments, work with the physicians. So I'm like, that can bridge who put all the small puzzles together to make sure the overall holistic plan for these individuals is well taken care of to promote a good quality of life for them. So that's been my work. So I do a lot of audits, a lot of policy paper writing, a lot of annual assessments, a lot of staff training, staff audits and accountability, that's what documentation, you know, laying people off, hiring people, and then all that kind of stuff. for the past 6-7 years.
Right, interesting.
So alongside that one, I'm actually also staying in touch with the team in the Gambia to make sure that my heart belongs to the environment. Even though I'm not in the Gambia, with the advancement of technology, I can be able to at least regroup people, train them, and serve as a sort of inspiration for them.
That's actually what I was gonna say, because from where the journey started for you. Your training in tourism in the Gambia, and then into Taiwan, and now in the US, actually, working in social policy. So that's quite a journey.
So that's not all what I do. I also work as a consultant. If you look at my resume, I work with Social Development Dialogue in the UK. I was involved with a project called Millennium Cooperation Challenge, and I was a research officer for Gambia. So even though I'm not in Gambia, the US government will give Gambia grants. They will take overseas consultants, but they will also reach out to me to also work with them as a research assistant. So I was looking at about transportation. How can we upscale river transportation from Denton Beach all the way down to up country? How would that affect the communities that are on the river because of the riverbank? How deep is the river Gambia? What are some of the features like the mangroves, the fisheries of the river Gambia that can be tapped into for us to promote the livelihood of the Gambian community? So that was that project. I also work with Columbia University students to send their team to the Gambia. That's been on conservation, and then some other side hustles pretty much through consultancy.
Interesting life story of Omar AJ Saho, born and bred in Gunjur and currently living in the United States of America as a counselor for Washington State. Mbadingolu bading jibirlal aning min yalon ko ibinani programme jibela nyato abe Gunjur online TV da jibe kan a program called Profile Show with LBJ. Program ola mi alon ko ngamol min sulte na sate ko no na banko kan min yalon ko nga jikko tumando ba ibe palasol min to sai palasi nya far ngolon bare sai itata no palasol to nya dile bari ni mu ibe dindiare warante be tembo tolte ni kam mosoto yi kam min jibe no santo ike yakano miya lonko yaje ko ay min keno ifana feso keno wo dalilo latino ngani program ni prepare kana sambali bi Omar AJ Saho wala ketan guest follow te ning episode ning program follow mi lonko nga soto ali jambi minal kamul sambana ngale karo kare minamo kilin sambala le ni mi lonko nado kachala tumando bado dinno mi lonko be duma ise yakano ise karanno kaje ko dobije ni amera ko se kolon singo wole mukuti mi alon ko silo te nyanda min dala ni nyim programme dol jibe to mando ba e ba jala ko hani karango discipline wolon kaddu hoke hard work ye okay so that it mun alon ko ba jibe kan abe damen ifana se fotano je Omar to ni se na point o mi alon ko itata America mi samba America for bitata America yela second master's degree ke woto in social policy yo anin saying for ibe do ko min keka mi alon ko anin environment fatata to manding but han saying environment ola ko iba kekan ni ibe jam faring Gambia la nya bari conservation on environment ko hani say ba de ibo ko konole bar butung ibe do ko sifa min America ni so fonye non na badin la moy lali mandiga kangola ka program ni rapo abaraka
hawla manna tan America jang sama meneka 2017 kalme Gambia do ko mon soro jo time o ntara Columbia University in New York pour ka conference attend wala meeting bari bemba attend wala dunia be tumbe yuruwa soro nyaade mi ko mo kana to koma mbese yuruwa kan pada kana ke be yuruwa damade ba se yuruwa ti mi ka be tara fofaw so wolen sinu jamma fa wala ba janin kana America comme nga fa nyamen diamo kuma swar wala kon ka tiba wala fana finde de bande tiba lunta wala Gambia banko kan ke bonde birim bako ma fa la fo Gambia la jam stade jamalto nga tiba bo dolum da ngi sama Gambia banko ke yayndi wala ta den kursi wala ni kulum parti tiba wala ni kulum bam kana Gambia poro kana dal jibe na photo angal America jang New York ngas fa na Facebook comme fele Columbia University Columbia kan mon pato pour ka ni conference kan attendi tiba family nya wala je ko nyaka he Omar janni ka bondi jang atay ni nga nya nyoje kan dole fele ka bondi banko kan nga holde sala ba janni ka tala fini nya nyoje ha nko ka mi dan lanje sombe wala nya manunje atara watam ka da Columbia University na Gunjur ko do ke ni Ismaila Mbaje bo jan yenji ala bunko New York je mbo feje tiba bo ina tikelo ni sa yembona New York ka na conference ni program da ngabe mo en fena Portland so Portland na ka chala kanje ne ka itin ni la banda nyoje la wala was way back in 2010 ma fonla bolo ka nyaada fanya bang so sara ka chala na Taiwan so ka nyaada na ka memori wala do ko nyaade ma fam nyaanya wala na dasi ala karola ni environment ko ngam da ngabe fa en kay bat do ko ndar banko kan do banko kan sin waje dem sila janar ana ko nyi parliamentara mba me so ta kramo de karanja fana katu ye wulo na de nyal fa hamba kale par pro xale ma do fana mara nyal wala karola police fana lonno proté fana karam ay karam mo ni to foni mfongo ta computer ko ngam da nga apply mfongo e fo karam mo yenda wola min ko mara wala mara fonnin kelme Gambia sani mo wajale mo wala smartphone la mari wo smartphone a just ko ken wala bang nte computer ka yelen fon ka type nin ko ngo karam fon le wala ka ni mo le nyoka mi ko ta computer bol so kono ni to dal nin ka cika musa didi touré wala kono bol le kono baka wota amna be nyoko monkelin kono na computer ni de ka cika nga bol kono ma so ni nyone woni ni nyoka njaro nga tanga bondo ko social media nga tay na telephone ni computer nga just ko ken do fana kan so ntela computer skills nin ko nga wala ta sa nga school da nga apply jang jeng accept scholarship wala ntala karamo da ko da bakale ntala ko njossa ko nda be sala nyoka nen ito jolon de ha it's going over $30,000 every 4 months nga karamo wana ja ndunga sanyi fola so you do the math so ngo karamo am parala wala je nga ba in 2019 jani nga karamo fa bang a tarante ba Seattle ka New York ka Boston karamo la nga do ko so the same Seattle jamma fa jani nga karamo fa bang namur na wala kante kan jo salary lembe awali do salary do ko kan jo wala ngata do ko nga wa talent se sumanda nga jitala nga se sukon do ko klim boda mal ngo do ko bar do ko nyimine ma de mo min yalen ko kabiri wude ela wulu wato yene maybe sunde ma mon courant so je ma fa wala le mo wala man fa ko min gen sa ko min ko tole mun wala ma wala wayo le ke be wala sifal kabiri ngallu wa karma min ken America jang nka wo ko min ko ken wo bunda fanna nyene kadu man sa kunda la bunda min bola ndi wo mo ka chan len ka nyimul le kumne ka kiskisi mbi ma ko nyambe de ma nyaadi lo tana fana ma min jaral sifala lo le fanna nyene wodlaje mo jama tara mar ni mo ke boro ni la tane boro dire pour que boro da kadi wo monda ani ka no so to nyaay men jo wala ka kam da ka sabe intana la sa entre ka mo mi ko be sundi ni yirju ma de intele marati wo bundal bu mebela na wodo ko folo nyina no wo sanji saba nko to la jombe da kadi kanjo wota mo dola mantoro wato wadi dola tan mone lul nko ala won beda na wala sanji saba ko monto na ta la place do fanata place o parce que saljem den en kamara mo le do ta fara mo tan saba ni lul ni feng docteur man tarawul ko alima seconda be ko man tabe ko baro mol betu ila training na mate bang yore ko la mate bang ko la mate abek tan tabulo ko wala berin 2019 for signing ntebo do ko ambe jama fa wala bar wo betu ko nyaanya Gambia man bonde Gambia environment ko ni kono katon do go jenga janne sen contact ko ni kala tefa ma ko na siro ke Gambia fa nyiru wa kare kala so nka de ko ko kam ko hase consultant nka wowa e kan joala for Columbia University la mari bang for Social Direct University in the UK la mari bang and all of those companies me ko do ko wa Gambia man so ko ndaka ko sasi do ko la bro fa la kan defana kan defana sasi pour sa do ko ke ni computer la nesmi ko ni ko wa Gambia bang ko na wulo ba nyaade na de nyaade ba nyaade na bara bondo ba nyaade la na lu wala ba nyaade pour kan to na kebe mta kebe tankande nsena londo na hamol da men so na ngafoy yende jonna manan ko wala ifana ya wakibaram de bela nyoka ka Gambia man so ko nda la fere ha sai na balu woni alhamdulillah nka nyin do ko min American ko wano jere bar wo borin ko la fa nan kan consultancy do ko fanake ko fanam ko fanake so wol don ko min ko do je mi ko do ko social media ma ko sala di fana sujuro fana ko ma tale ye but dinni wala ko min ka ko amay sonia ka do fama faade kan be grade 9 mbama na high school de grade 10 not already ma rosro wolda nga scholarship da nga sto wolda ndam ma klende mo le tan fesro nyin kanje dole sona uniform wala dole ka password dina ka gudjo bi kan na wolda dole ka yama xadama dia control so wole betu alhamdulillah ina henneke la farlanti kam fa nim sa dem dole bi ha ndunte fonni bada bakilin fakal fonni bada sare kin da fonni bada banko kin fonni bada duniya nim be ndem kam jutu mo la dal So welcome back to dunia bolo fna bakale kana trying gap ken dim mol tema ni nyaa mo min ji dunia bolo ka kumun kuro damati wala mo misena fa damma mo be na fa ma wolo nte mi sem bakara mo jamma fa ngo je sindi tan commando ha dole bi je no ndana bolo ko ye yamar ko dole rek abanda ba dole bi je wol dole na surface na bolo ko sindi tan nyaado ila ka yamar ko dole sakale wa nyaa alhamdulillah ngala tendu bimbe dem den hamma fa na hajo stra mola bara at least fasaka yamaro la kala bara nga ku jama de ma ko kan fon sante den alhamdulillah.
That was Omar AJ Saho giving us his life story, how it all started for him in the coastal settlement of Gunjur in the Gambia to Washington in the United States of America. Omar, before we wrap up, I know there is a lot of people watching this, youngsters in particular. What would be your final word to them to really appreciate what you have? The condition you have probably will not be permanent if you are disciplined enough, focused, and you work hard for wherever you want to be in life. What would be your final words to our listeners in English, and then we'll do it in Mandinka before we wrap up.
So my final word to the listeners down there, or the young folks will be: no condition is permanent. Stay determined, stay focused, and be very much accommodating to other people's suggestions and their advice on your career path and as well as your life journey. The people who are going to advise you, they're all going to be a role model for you. They're going to teach you about their life lessons and things that has gone wrong for them in their life. They're all about your future. They're all about your upkeep. They're all about your success. If somebody's advising you, whether you're from the same household with them or you're from the same family with them or the same village with them, listen to them because they are telling you something very important. Along the journey, try to have a very good education. If you can't, try to have a very good education. If not, get skilled. These are the two things that are going to help you in your life. Life have no shortcut. Anything you are doing in life, start at least understand it to your fingertips. That is going to help you a lot in your life. Because if you do a shortcut in your life, wherever you get a job or you get contracted for certain kind of works, if there's a shortcut in your life, you never have the competence to at least execute the function for your given with. That's why sometimes I tell people in America, hey, you know what? I am not here to look for any blessings because I knew what I knew. I didn't apply for any kind of job. Any job that I have, I actually knew what I got. It's because the foundation was strong. Yes, I have a mistake. I have a failure in high school, junior secondary school, but I learned from that. And then through the collaborative network of support system I have, I was able to succeed. You people also can have the wider community at the village level, at the community level, at the national level in the country. People who are going to be in your life, listen to them, take their advice, remain serious, remain dedicated. Do not be envious, but learn from other people. And then try to get people who are going to actually coach you and model you in their life. I don't have that. But I was able to take all these side advices along the way. People who will tell you, get serious with your education, go to school, do not follow girls, do not follow women. When I was in Bakau, they used to say, he's a school book. He says it's a book. They used to call me as a book because I was not attending football matches in Bakau. I was just at home with my book, and that was about it. So pretty much that wraps it up. Be serious, be honest, and then stay focused and determined in life. You're gonna succeed.
Okay.
Either with skill or competence education.
Yeah, thank you. For if you can maybe summarize that in Mandinka for the benefit of our listeners who do not understand English at that level.
Yes, Mari on sentiment for Congo Kumfa Lala Matiko, Hanamadi, Foniki, Isa Tai Tonya, Saban de Balu Kono. Wobeka and Walamat, neither Karan la fall on the Karanama, family Karanama, a track and Miwa, Way Koila. Mo fanake yamara bolu kono fo la suko non kolla mari badi on la mati ban fo sade ko len kola kaybe nyola sade nyola mari wala banku gambe di on la mati ban wala banku dindo la mati ban ile yamaro mo ya tanin mu nyone sabar wala kadu wo ni ke yamara wala ito la dunia bolu woni kono nyaa fedno je wala fedno kan to bolu kono mi alen ko indi misata wala so ko mbo wo nyama isa tay mo ni ke yamara ile yamaro ya tanin kulwoni hormoni bunya kono ifana min ko balu woni kono ya try back ya tani sunden wakil wala anin tenkon ni se wala dunia mi na sam mo wala nteni nga fa mo nteni be kan fan ko tamala ko na kala amantara je min se sama tamala fa wala But some of me may be calm fang. So
Mhm.
a bole nyama je yama role ma ani mole min yamma ko slow ni tan ko fa dem tan dem bi moy ma ko amanda kale ba kale fa kale nyot askam da kale sa kale nyo fa wala bar ilo ba kilo ni sone ya ni tenku woni kul woni kono Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala silum da yele wala pre kale bele ka suande so a bole
Mhm.
nyama.
Mhm. Right. Thank you very much, Omar AJ Saho. It's been a real pleasure having you on the Profile with LBJ show, which is the first episode of this program, streaming live on Gunjur Online TV. But before I leave you, I've got a question.
Yes.
Um, Somebody said to me that Omar had this crazy idea of building a hotel under the water in Gunjur or under the sea in Gunjur. What is that all about? Could you just explain that to our viewers for building a hotel under the sea in Gunjur?
So what happened was I have all these crazy fantasy ideas. Whenever we are studying tourism in the Gambia, there was one of
Yeah,
our lecturers, Lamin Bojang.
yeah.
Lamin Bojang is a senior research officer for Gambia Tourism Board.
That's okay.
So, during one of our lunch breaks, we are just having a conversation like, what do you guys want to do? Like a business model. So we'll pitch in an idea. And I was like, well, I'm from a coastal community in the Gambia, and I used to read and look at YouTube videos. If you look at United Arab Emirates in Dubai, they want to have all these, what we call virtual realities. And I'm like, well, we can also have an innovative idea of building an underwater hotel, whereby in Gunjur, deep inside in the water, we can have
Yeah.
a hotel in the water down there, and then people are going to come and watch it.
Yeah.
So that was why he was telling me, tell them about this
Right.
idea. So interestingly enough, when I become very much involved in environmental conservation, Lami always remind me to say, what are going to be the environmental implications of building a hotel under the water? And I'm like, well, I got to redo the statement because it's going to affect the entire marine ecosystem. Yes, it's quite
That's right.
interesting. Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much, Omar. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, the Profile show. I'm sure our viewers would have learned quite a lot from your journey, and hopefully, any youngsters that are sitting out there, wondering, if they can make it in life. Here's an example, Omar. None of the parents went to school. They didn't have much, but through perseverance, discipline, dedication, he was able to navigate his way through life, got himself educated along the line, got a job to obviously be able to support his family, or his mother in particular, having lost his dad at that age. But then carried on, plowed on until he was able to leave the country to go to Taiwan to further his education. And then today he's in the United States, working for the Washington state in a very critical role. So that tells you, with discipline, with perseverance, like I said, anything is possible for anybody if you put your heart through to it. That was the Profile show with LBJ, episode one. We're gonna leave you with obviously this, whatever you're doing, um, skills, education, whatever it is, with discipline, with dedication, with focus, with integrity, with honesty, the sky will be the limit. So until we come your way again in episode two of the Profile Show, thank you very much for watching. It's your host, LBJ. We hope you enjoy this company. We thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Omar. And Omar, we cannot thank you enough for sparing your time to come and spend this hour with us, to tell us, your life story, hopefully with a view to influencing others, the younger generation, or providing a role, being a role model to them. If Omar can do it, then why not me? I can do it. So hopefully anybody who is watching this or who will watch it later would learn a thing or two about this journey of Omar, and maybe emulate that to make something good for themselves and for their community. On that note, thank you very much, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you.